This is the special edition of the RadCity 5 Plus ST from Rad Power Bikes. This has a few differences from the standard version of the bike, so what are those and do they have any effect on the bike's performance? Let's take a ride and find out. Welcome back to Electric Bike Report. I'm John, and before we jump in, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. That'll keep you up to date when we release new e-bike reviews a couple times every week. But let's talk about the special edition of the RadCity here, which has some of the same trademark characteristics that you get on every Rad Power e-bike, and a lot of those aspects come down to the motor. This bike has a 750 watt rear hub motor, which is a really substantial amount of power, but it's sort of toned down to be a bit less aggressive than your garden variety 750 watt, and that gives it a really steady and reliable feel. Not only does that make the bike safer overall, but it also allows for a nice wide span of different power levels for different types of riders. So the special edition that we have here has this high visibility tiger orange paint job, and that is only available in the step-thru frame. In addition to being safer on the road since it stands out, I think this color really complements the bike's design, but that's not the only difference that we have between this and the standard version of the bike. Instead of the curved Dutch-style handlebars and the adjustable stem, the limited edition has a set of super wide 730mm low-rise handlebars with a slight ergonomic curve, and then a standard style stem that's less adjustable but offers improved stability. We like the setup on the standard RadCity 5 Plus ST, but the components here are a bit more typical for what you get on other dedicated commuter bikes, and I really liked that these handlebars gave me really precise control over the steering. But to run through the rest of the specs and components here, the motor uses a cadence sensor to stay engaged, and it's powered by a 48 volt, 672 watt hour battery. That is semi-integrated into the down tube, so it's easy to remove. It has a charge indicator button to show you how much power is left without turning the bike on, and both the battery and the bike itself are compliant with UL 2849 and 2271. The bike uses a 7-speed Shimano Altis drivetrain managed by an over-the-bar shifter on the right handlebar. The gearing setup is pretty standard with a 46-tooth chainring and an 11 to 34-tooth cassette. The brakes are made by Nut. They're a hydraulic system with 180mm rotors. There are 27.5-inch wheels with 2-inch custom street tires. There's a front suspension with 50mm of travel with a spring fork, and the bike comes with full coverage fenders with mud flaps on both wheels. There's also an integrated headlight and tail light that also works as a brake light. The saddle is also custom, and then there's a nice cargo rack with a bit of a higher weight capacity than usual. That can hold up to 59.5 pounds. And then up in the cockpit, there's a bit more going on here over your everyday commuter bike. I really liked the functionality and the feel of the dual displays. The screen on the left is where you can read or adjust your current pedal assist setting or turn on the lights. And there's also a bar-based battery readout. That side also has a bell, but then on the right, there's a half-twist throttle and the shifter. That combination felt a little bit weird, but I do think I've gotten more used to it after spending a little bit more time on the bike. But right in the middle, there's the main display that includes a speedometer, an odometer, a clock, and a watt meter for the motor. That about wraps up the list, but in case I missed anything, we'll leave a link to my written review over at electricbikereport.com down in the video description. For now, let's dive into our testing and see how the bike performed. In our brake test, we pedaled the special edition RadCity 5 Plus ST up to its Class 2 max speed of 20 miles per hour, and then hit the brakes, then measured the distance it took to come to a complete stop. The bike's average stopping distance after 3 tests was 25 feet 5 inches, which we can compare with other similar e-bikes we've tested. The current average for all of the commuter bikes with hydraulic brakes we have data for is 21 feet 9 inches, which means that the RadCity 5 Plus ST was over 2.5 feet slower than average, but it's still within the range we consider safe and effective. We've tested many of Rad's other bikes, which also used brakes from Nut, and they all did quite a bit better in this test. The longer stopping distance in this case seemed to be a result of the custom tires, which seemed to lock up and sort of skate for a while when braking really hard. We'd recommend Rad switch to something with a bit more stickiness and grip to bring the bike's stopping distance down. But bottom line, the bike is equipped with decent brakes, but there is some room for improvement here. Let's take the special edition RadCity out for a speed test to find out what speeds it can hit in each pedal assist setting, and also to see how quickly its throttle can hit 20 miles per hour. All right, we are here on the Rad Power Bikes RadCity 5 Plus ST Limited Edition to do a speed test. Going here with no pedal assistance, kind of between 9 and 9.5 miles per hour pretty comfortably. Not trying to put in a lot of work on this test to just get a sense of what the motor can do. So let's go up to PAS 1. And a little bit of a hum from the motor. Not noticing a huge difference, but there's definitely, something going on there. Got about a mile per hour of difference up to about 10.5 in this setting. So let's go to PAS 2. Feeling, a little bit more of a push from behind. We'll go up to fourth gear. Definitely making more of a difference here. And again, I'm not trying to put in a ton of work here, but get up to speed. Looks like we're gonna land kind of right around 13.5. Okay, maybe up to about 14. So let's go up to PS3. Definitely notice a big difference there. There's quite a bit of power there. I'm actually going to shift up 2 gears, I think. Yeah, I think, previous settings would be if I'm taking a casual weekend ride, and this one is definitely more suited to getting where you're going. I'm actually, let's see, up to 18.5 miles per hour here. Let's go up to PS4 and see what happens. Not a big difference there, but I'm feeling, a little bit more of a push. Up to 7th gear, which is the max. And we're kind of going, 19.5 miles per hour or so. 20 by the bike. Well, okay, almost 20 by the app too. This is a class 2 bike, so 20 is the limit. Let's see if 5 makes any difference. And at least here on flat ground, it really doesn't. So yeah, kind of in that same 19.5, 20 mile per hour range. So we'll call that our speed test on the RadCity 5 Plus ST. All right, we're here on the RadCity 5 Plus ST, the limited edition, to do a throttle acceleration test from 0 to 20. So we'll go by the bike's main display here, but I do have that app open. So let's start in 3, 2, 1, go. Now kind of slowly but steadily building here. And we are at 20. All right. So that steady and reliable feeling from the motor that I mentioned earlier was really clear throughout this test. The bike's throttle wasn't super punchy, which we like, but it also didn't feel underpowered. For the pedal portion, I kept my pedaling pretty relaxed to see how much of a difference the motor really made. My speed without the motor was 9.7 miles per hour, and in the lowest assist setting, PAS 1, I didn't feel too much of a difference. I hit 10.7 miles per hour there, and then in PAS 2, I hit 14 miles per hour, so a much bigger difference, and then that increased to 18.8 in PAS 3. PAS 4 and 5 seemed to be about the same in this test. I had 20.1 and 19.7 miles per hour there, so both were right at the Class 2 speed limit, with only some slight variation from changes in the path. The overall distribution of power in each pedal assist setting was decent. We usually prefer a steady, linear increase in measurable speed, and the RadCity 5 Plus definitely showed some tapering off on the high end due to that 20 mile per hour limit. Still, it's a pretty good balance that offers plenty of options for different types of riders. I'd give the RadCity an A- in our speed test just because PAS3 seemed to be a bit more powerful than expected in relation to the other settings, but things are definitely good overall here. Rad Power Bikes advertises a range of between 25 and 50 miles with the special edition of the RadCity 5 Plus ST, and we were able to do significantly better than that when we tested the bike's battery life. We pedaled the bike in PAS5 and PAS1 to get a low and high-end bracket for its range, and our results were 37.3 to 64.3 miles. Compared to similar commuter e-bikes we've tested, the RadCity's high power results were above average, especially when considering its motor and battery specs. We usually like to see equal measures between the battery capacity in watt hours and the motor's nominal wattage, so we expected lower mileage with the RadCity's smaller 672 watt-hour battery in this portion of the test. Specifically, we expected 54 minutes on the bike with 17 miles of range, but what we ended up with was around 120% better in both areas. This efficiency likely has to do with that tuned down feel of the motor. Rad actually keeps their motors running a little below spec to make sure they're always following CPSC guidelines, and where most other motors from other brands peak above their nominal wattage, Rad's do not, so 750 watts is the max here. Basically, the RadCity still has enough power to get you moving, but it uses less energy and is able to go further on a single charge. The bike's low power results were more in line with what we expected, so overall it did very well in this test. 37 to 64-ish miles should cover most daily commutes, but I think there's a good chance it'll cover multiple days of travel before you'll need to recharge. We tested the hill climbing ability of the special edition RadCity 5 Plus ST's throttle and pedal assist system at Hellhole Trail, which has an average grade of 12% over its third of a mile of paved path. I'm gonna pass you over to Justin for this test so you can experience things from his point of view.
We are on the RadCity 5, this new super cool tiger orange color, step-thru, doing the throttle test. So we're gonna see how this goes. Out of the gate, kind of right around 5 miles per hour through this, or sorry, 8 miles per hour through this steep section. Down to 7, 6. So the motor definitely kind of not gonna slingshot you up a hill, but I'm gonna say I don't think that's necessarily bad. A lot of times people want something that just rockets them up and they kind of feel out of control. This one feels pretty good when you're riding, and it's held right at 6 miles per hour. So that's that steep section. The motor is on the quiet side of motors. Again, I'm only 8 miles per hour, so we'll see as we get to the top if it gets a little bit louder. I'll let you listen to the motor through this next kind of steep, punchy section here. Let's see if it makes it up. How's it going? So yeah, kind of held right at that 6 miles per hour. So it kind of feels like it just has that good kind of low end torque that even if you're not going super fast, it's going to kind of keep you going. So we'll see what the results are. It's not going to be a hill killer on throttle. Again, I would say Rad has kind of purposely tuned their motors more for longevity. I've actually taken them out and gone up and down this hill as many times as possible trying to brick the motor. I have bricked other companies and have never bricked a Rad. So doing pretty good, 13 miles at the end. We'll see what the results come out. On to the pedal test with RadCity 5 now. So see how this does. Again, I'm kind of soft pedaling up here. Shifting down into 4th gear. So through this first section, right around 11 miles per hour. Again, I'm letting the motor do most of the work here, not trying to push too much with those rear hub motors. So it looks like it's going to go down to about 9. So a little bit faster than the throttle. I think the throttle we were down to about 6. So you definitely get up faster. And I could go faster if I really wanted to crank it, but I try to keep all these consistent. So the motor sounds just like it did on the throttle, where it's nice and kind of quiet. Almost kind of forget that it's there while you listen to it through this next section. All right, so yeah, kind of held right there at that 9-10 miles per hour through that section, and starting to pick up speed a little bit. Shifts fairly well while I'm climbing the hill. And so we'll see what the results are. It's not going to be a barn burner, but just remember, this motor's not going to have any issues going for a long time for you. And you can tell I'm not breathing at all. Very easy hill climb on the RadCity 5.
So to be clear, Rad Power bikes typically aren't the fastest in this test, but as Justin said, they also don't quit. So that steadiness was very apparent here. Justin finished the throttle portion in 1 minute and 54 seconds and maintained an average speed of 9.5 miles per hour. His PAS5 results were much faster, coming in at 1 minute and 30 seconds at 12.1 miles per hour. Compared to other commuter e-bikes we've tested, yes, the RadCity came in on the slow side, but I want to focus on a few important considerations here. First, not all e-bikes can even finish this test, so the RadCity is still plenty capable of handling steep hills. Second, pedaling up hellhole is not something you'd want to do without the help of the motor, so you're definitely going to be thankful for the assistance the RadCity provides. And third, to add to what Justin was talking about during the throttle test, Rad builds in some protection to their motors to keep them from overheating, which helps them to keep going for longer, so you're gonna have a tough time finding a more reliable motor. To take a quick detour, I tested the bike on another hill near the office to gauge the power difference between PAS4 and PAS5, since we didn't really feel any difference on flat ground. I won't get into the specific numbers on this one, but we noticed a 20% difference in time and a 24% increase in speed in PAS5, so we definitely recommend the highest setting for the largest amount of help on hills. I want to bring you with me for one more spin on the special edition of the RadCity 5 Plus ST to talk about its ride quality, so let's go out for a couple more minutes and then we can wrap things up back here. All right, we are here on the Rad Power Bikes RadCity 5 Plus ST, the limited edition, to give you a sense of what it's like to ride. So there are a couple differences between this and the standard version of the bike, primarily with the handlebars. Aside from the color. So the standard version has more Dutch-inspired sort of curved handlebars, where these are more straight. Low-rise bars, they are wider, 730 millimeters on these. So with those you get, I would say, a mostly upright riding position. I've got a little bit of a forward lean, but not too bad there. There are fewer points of adjustment on this version of the bike with the standard style stem, so you could loosen that up and kind of rotate the handlebars a little bit to change your feel, but primarily the points of adjustment are with the seat post and the saddle there. This version of the bike is made for riders between 4'8" and 6 feet tall, and I think that those on the taller end are probably going to have a little bit less leg extension. I'm 5'11", and that's kind of what I'm experiencing here. So moving on though, we have a suspension fork up front. That is a spring fork with 50 millimeters of travel. And then we are rolling on 27.5 inch by 2 inch custom street tires. So kind of a nice blend between stability and maneuverability, and then also a little bit of comfort when you're rolling over bumps there. So And then the motor, let's talk about the motor. That is a 750 watt rear hub that uses a cadence sensor. So I'm gonna show you how quick that is to engage. We'll bump up to PAS5 here, and I'm just kind of coasting. I'm actually gonna bounce back to a lower gear, but I'm just gonna turn the cranks and show you how quickly that engages. We'll do that now. So pretty fast there. It takes about a quarter turn of the cranks, and then it, power sort of builds slowly. So let's bounce back to the studio and talk a little bit more. I like just about everything this bike offers, and I do think it has a bit of an edge over the standard version of the bike. I'm usually a big fan of anything super adjustable and Dutch styled, so I do like the original version, but this version of the bike feels like it takes itself a little more seriously for a commuter bike, especially in terms of its responsive steering and control. The wide handlebars here felt really awesome, although just as a word of caution, the added width does make them easier to get caught on things. I found the suspension fork here to be a little soft, even with the preload turned all the way up, but it wasn't a problem during normal operation. Overall, the ride here was super comfortable. I really like the saddle as well. The grips felt pretty decent, even with gloves on, and I also like that the riding position didn't feel too aggressive. The dual displays gave the cockpit a super cool high-tech feel that I think is kind of missing from a lot of e-bikes, and all of the controls worked out pretty well. There is one area with some room for improvement, and that's with the bike's cable management. It's a minor thing, but we reviewed the standard version of the RadCity 5 Plus back at the start of 2022 and pointed out the same eyesore then. So with a special edition of the bike, we'd just expect a little bit better of a presentation. I think it's worth talking more about accessories here because that's something Rad does very well. The RadCity 5 Plus can be outfitted with a ton of optional extras, including cargo baskets, soft and hard shell storage containers, pet carriers, wheel locks, and even the Thule Yep Maxi child seat. So overall, while there's a little room for improvement, I think the ride quality here is really solid. The bike feels really capable and comfortable, it's responsive, and it offers a lot of options for riders who might use the bike for different applications. Rad's mission is to get more people out of their cars and onto bikes. So the RadCity's goal is to make the job of getting to and from work a lot easier. This is a bike that's made to be comfortable and functional, which I think it does well, but it's also really fun to ride and it can be tailored to fit the needs and personality of its rider. The special edition of the bike in the step-thru frame kind of cranks things up a few notches with a cool looking but also functional paint job and some great handlebars that change the feel and generally improve the handling. In our testing, we saw solid performance in just about every test. There was a little room for improvement in its stopping ability, but that was more related to tires than the brakes themselves. We'd still love to see Rad improve the cable management as well, but otherwise the special edition RadCity 5 Plus ST has all the best features of a Rad Power bike in a great looking package. So if you're looking for a safe and dependable bike for getting to work and back or running errands, I think the RadCity 5 Plus is going to be right up your alley. If you want to take a closer look at this or the standard version of the bike, check out the link to Rad's website in the video description down below. And you'll also find a link to our written review if you enjoy reading. But thanks for hanging out with me today, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Let us know if you have any questions as well. But that's all for today. Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this is the special edition of the Rad Power Bikes RadCity 5 Plus ST.